Hello, this is the Maple Moon podcast. I am Courtney, your host, and on the Saturday, the 29th of June 1667, Samuel Pepys wrote in his diary, "Up, having had many ugly dreams tonight of my father and my sister and mother's coming to us, and meeting my wife and me at the gate of the office going out, they all in laced suits. And come, they told me to be with this Mayday. My mother told me she lacked a pair of gloves, and I remembered a pair of my wife's in my chamber, and resolved she should have them, but then recollected how my mother come to be here, when I was in mourning for her, and so thinking it to be a mistake, and now thinking her all this while dead, I did contrive that it should be said to any that inquired that it was my mother-in-law, my wife's mother, that was dead, and we in mourning for. This dream troubled me, and I waked." Now, the premise of recording dreams is an interesting one. People have been recording their dreams for thousands of years, and I personally started recording mine probably when I was in childhood, really. I've always been fascinated with the concept of messages through dreams. And a particular one that I do remember was when I was a year out of sixth form, so this would have been 2015 because I dropped out of sixth form in 2014. And there was there was something going on. I was having this dream about this particular person um from my sixth form, and I kept thinking that this was a message for me to see him again. And so I kept recording the dream, and it was always in the dream I would meet him and I would see him. We would be together. And so I kept recording them. And then one day, I was stood in the middle of the town centre, and I remember seeing, because I'd been thinking on it because I had my first self-published collection. I remember the woman she was part of the Sherlock Society with us that we formed. When I was there. And so I remember her saying, she said, "When you publish a book, come and see me." And so I remember being stood there, and I remember I opened up Instagram, and Adele, because she'd been absent since 2012 at this point, had put up a post about her new album that was coming out, which turned out to be, yeah, would have been 25, wouldn't it? So album 25. And she put up this big post about, not putting things off, doing things that you think you should do before you can't do them anymore. And while I was stood there, because in the town centre it's literally like a 5-minute walk to the sixth form, and I just instantly switched. I was like, I've got to go to the sixth form. I've got to see him. So I trotted along. I took myself up there. Asked for the woman that I was also going to see at the desk. And I asked for this other person, and they said that they didn't know if he was available. So I was really hoping, because I probably wouldn't get this chance again. And I'd been having these dreams. That's the reason why I went up. So eventually she came down, and then I saw him come down the stairs, and he was doing something, and then he came to talk to me, and I got that moment that this dream had been telling me that I needed. And after that meeting, the dream stopped. Now, since then, I have had a couple of dreams about him, but not to the frequency that I was having at the time. Now, with dream recording, I've always had this particular dream about lions. Lions feature in so many of my dreams, and this like fear, terror, where there's a lion and I can't get away, or I'm hiding from a lion. And funnily enough, last night wasn't a lion, but it was orangutans and apes that were coming through and being near us, and we were having to be really still, like these massive silverback gorillas. There are dream diaries and dream dictionaries for these things about what they mean, but I thought I would go through my journal and just read out a couple of dreams because I've been recording them for ages. This journal I started in February. I've got about 40 pages left of it. Let's see what we've got. Oh, here's one. This is from the 12th, so literally a week ago. I sold a script to a producer and Susanna Lipscomb, historian I've mentioned before. Redacted rang me upset to say that she had lost something of Redacted's. Then a woman told me something to insult me as I was buying a bracelet. So that's one. And then another one from a couple of days before. Redacted and Redacted admitted they had been staying in a female-only apartment block where it is dirty. Then at one point I was trying to book myself into a hotel in Venice. We passed by lots of Italian food, and when I could only pay in Great British pounds, the man said we could pay by eating icing, Lady in the Tramp style, me and this other girl. Redacted wouldn't answer the phone to send me money to book the hotel. Then Redacted said down the phone that he had gone to see Redacted. Then there was another one. I was having my hair done in some fancy place. Then I found out that the bookshop I used to go into in real life was closing. I went to salvage some books but happened to find some people's journals, so I got them back to their owners. Then suddenly I was back in high school and preaching about my restricted freedom. Now, one particular dream I do remember having months ago, which is in here, was about this man who gave me Sylvia Plath used to write on pink memorandum paper. And in the dream, this man gives me copies of her drafts of poems and says something along the lines of, you're going to be the next muse, my love. Talent like that transfers. Essentially meaning that her talent will transfer to me and that I'll be the next sort of big thing in poetry. And that was, I mean, it's in here, but that was months ago. Some of them are really short, some of them are really detailed. I mean, there are some that fill up an actual full page. And as I read out, Samuel Pepys recorded his dreams, but also Sylvia Plath and Ted Hughes did too. Because I remember reading Ted Hughes' letters not too long ago, and he said that it was when he was writing The Thought Fox, his poem. He said he dreamt one night about this fox head that would come up from behind a door, and he kept dreaming of this, and that's really what inspired The Thought Fox. And both of them, of course, were into the occult and tarot and everything mystical. And so have I been all these years. I actually find that people who are dead come through to my dreams. Like last night, I had a dream about somebody who wasn't here. And actually, interestingly, I also feel things in my dreams. Like, I feel pain, I can smell things. In the dream, I can hear things, I can touch things. I have use of all my senses in dreams, which is apparently unusual. But the concept of it is just interesting. There's a book by Vladimir Nabokov, which is actually called Have It on These Stairs. It's Insomniac Dreams, Experiments with Time. And he did something similar where he documented his dreams for 80 days as part of an experiment to test John Donne's theory that time might run in reverse, with later events causing earlier dreams. Now, the concept of this whole thing is that whether it's to tell the future or to indicate the past. Now, a lot of people can't actually remember dreams from the past, but I can remember dreams I had when I was about 5, 6. I've just always had this ability to be able to remember dreams. Like, I've had some where I've gone into magical worlds and where I kept having the same dream where there was a door, but it kept saying closed on it. And then one day it actually would open and it went into this big fantastical world. I've had a recurring dream about being abducted by aliens at precisely midnight, though I'm convinced that wasn't a dream and I've actually been abducted by aliens. Um, that was a weird one. I've had some extremely vivid ones that happened in the house, so when I've woken up, I've gone to stand precisely where the dream took place because it was so vivid. Like, you could actually bring yourself back into the dream. Um, I've always been trying to lucid dream, but I think I've been getting better at that recently by recording them. And there are some dreams I've had where in the dream I know I'm dreaming. Last night's one included we kept trying to go for Chinese food, and then I was given this sort of pocket box that would heat up the food, but it also burned me. And it was like these eggs and these little patty pastry things. So, going on from dreams, let's talk about sort of the concept of, well, the segue comes is that I had a dream about a specific person. Now, this guy, Stuart, I have written about him before, and we met during the first lockdown. I happened to send him a story to publish in his magazine, which was a Thorn literary magazine, and he accepted it, liked it, and then after that we started to talk, and we got to know each other, and we started to message each other. And with the lockdown, there was not much else to do. I was going through a really stressful period. We moved house because we were forced to this other house that wasn't ours. We were just going to be there for 2 years. It was a temporary house, and I would talk to him every night. He's from Toronto, you see. Um, and then we started sending each other voice notes, and I got to hear his voice. And then around the July time of 2020, he drew a picture of me. And it was at that point I realised that actually maybe there was something more to this relationship. And it really blossomed very quickly. We fell in love. Um, I've never known somebody who knew me inside and out like he did. We spent 3 hours on the phone every night. We messaged each other for hours on end, sent pictures, told our life stories for the, what was it, 9 months? And we had all these plans to go to Paris and go to where Sartre and Simone de Beauvoir went, you know, the Le de Mago, the Café de Flore, the Champs-Élysées. But unfortunately, unbeknownst to me, he was sick and he died that December. I found out by a letter and my whole world shattered. Because the thing about me is that um I've never really been one for a boyfriend. Like, I'm very much just alright being on my own, but then the people that I have liked in that way, I've always never liked me back, and it's really damaged my mental health and self-esteem because every person I've ever had an interest in has either got a girlfriend or they're just not interested in me whatsoever. So for Stuart to have an actual man say I love you was revolutionary for me. I was 23 at the time. He was 44 at the time. I've always liked the older men. They're just on more my intellectual level. Um, I know people have off age gaps, but I can't be with somebody who's my age. I don't know, I just gravitate towards older men. We get on much better and have much more in common. Literature, film, politics, worldviews, just emotional maturity. But anyway, so it was it's funny because this was 5 years ago now since he died, and I still feel this big hole, this big emptiness without him. Sometimes something happens or I write something, and I go to think, oh, send this to Stuart. And then I remember, he's not there. And unfortunately, since then, I've had all these health issues come up, and which makes me feel, really depressed. And I'm going through quite a lot with these health issues right now, in terms of mental health. And I just sort of remember the comfort he gave me, and of course I've got family, and they're the reason why I'm still here, because going through all of this without my mum, I just couldn't do any of this without her. You know, I couldn't do life in general without my mum. We have always been best friends, like, ride or die. Ever since I was a kid, we've just been best friends. And but Stuart knew me inside and out, like she does, but there are things that she knows I probably wouldn't say or that she doesn't understand. And so with Stuart, it was everything. He knew me inside and out. And it's just strange because 5 years on, I just think this this person that changed my life so irrevocably, and the point where, if it had been any other year, I could have flown out and saw him physically. We could have actually been together. But because of the lockdown, I obviously couldn't. So we were stuck planning, we had plans for the following spring to maybe meet up. And I have family in Canada, so it would have worked out fine. But unfortunately, he died that December. And recording dreams is actually something that I um experienced with him, and I used to tell him like all the dreams that I had, and he started recording his dreams. he wrote a poem actually, um, about me, but it was sort of to do with, it was kind of to do with the dream. Essentially, the line goes is, "But the dream was always you," and that's the nicest thing anyone, well, really any man has ever said to me, because that just doesn't get said to me, you know. I've been used to all these years of not having somebody. Here's the poem. I finally got it. "Keep a dream journal," she said. "You'll find out where your life's gonna skew. Trace the limits of the subconscious," she suggested, "to see what falls within its purview. That first night I dreamt I was a stargazer in Peru. Venus and Saturn in conjunction, a sneak preview. The second night I was scaling mountains in Kathmandu. And just as I began to drown in a world of white peaks under skies of navy blue, I looked down and saw compassionate emerald green eyes shining with a precious jade hue. The next night I couldn't sleep because I realised the dream was always you." And it's the nicest, kindest thing anyone's ever written about me. And I have all these in a box upstairs. I have the aftershave he wore. I have our letters because we sent handwritten letters to each other. We sent gifts. You know, I used to put wax seals on mine, spray them with perfume, seal them with a kiss. And it's just, so many people don't believe in the mystical side of the world, but the world is very much connected to, you know, astrology, the stars, the occult. I'm very much a believer in all of that, and I always have been. It's what guides my life for the most part. You know, if you're interested in astrology, I'm a Gemini sun, Aquarius moon, and a Cancer rising. My Gemini is also in my Venus, so I've got quite the chart. So maybe that explains a lot of things. But actually, what I really like is reading dreams in fiction, where people having dreams is a part of the story. So if you have any recommendations for that, please do let me know. Because off the top of my head, I'm trying to think of a good example where a dream features in the book. See, when you do things off the top of your head. But I find that so fascinating. Actually, that's kind of why I always try and incorporate dreams within my stories and plays and anything that I write, because I think the subconscious is very integral to humanity. What's underneath, what's the bit that you can't grasp physically, is what's the most revealing about a person. You know, a person can pro project this image of themselves without, you know, thinking about it, and they're showing this image that's not really true, but underneath the subconscious is where they really are. It's kind of like a purgatory. Like they're stuck there. If you've never, if you're a fan of Pink Floyd, you'll know what I'm about to say. But in Pink Floyd, in the wall artwork, that wall that surrounds the person within that wall, that's essentially what it's like. But dreams is really what I wanted to talk on for this episode. Now, this is probably about to be a half an hour long episode. Um, I will have longer episodes possibly in the future. But to wrap up this episode, let's see, we should read maybe a poem from Sylvia Plath, which I have in this collection here, because if you don't know already, Sylvia Plath is probably my favourite poet. I relate to her immensely. And I mean, her poems are just, they're so dark, but they are so imagistic. Because everyone thinks of Lady Lazarus, you know. So maybe we should do a short one that doesn't get read out so often. That would be nice, wouldn't it? Okay, I'm just going to stick with this one. It's quite atmospheric. So this one is called Resolve, published in 1956. Dave missed, Dave tarnish, with hands unserviceable, I wait for the milk van. The one-eared cat laps its grey paw and the coal fire burns. Outside, the little hedge leaves are becoming quite yellow. A milk film blurs the empty bottles on the windowsill. No glory descends, 2 water drops poise on the arched green stem of my neighbour's rose bush. Oh, bent bow of thorns, the cat unsheathes its claws. The world turns. Today I will not disenchant my 12 black-gowned examiners, or bunch my fist in the wind's sneer. I mean, that is just phenomenal, isn't it? She was just a phenomenal writer. So next time on the Maple Moon, we will possibly be talking about Daphne du Maurier, if I've timed this correctly. I mean, as you can hear, these podcasts are very casual. I don't have a big setup, maybe one day in the future, but these are very much like little newsletters, very personable. There's no intro song, no outro song. These are very much just, so bear with me because these are a very casual, less produced kind of podcast. I would love to produce one professionally one day, but being chronically ill, this is kind of what you're going to get at the moment. But I hope this one, that's been quite a bit longer, has provided something interesting. And of course, I'm starting out with these podcasts, so I will, of course, get more, better and better at these. Um, let's finish with some recommendations. So, for one, listening to an audiobook is Notes to John by Joan Didion, because actually, I don't like Joan Didion. I feel like I'm the only one who just doesn't care for her work. She's very cold, and it seems like she uses other people's stories and then tries to shy away from having the spotlight on her. Um, so that's what I'm listening to. I'm also listening to Between Meals by AJ Liebling, because food is actually a topic I want to do a podcast on at some point, because I'm a quarter Maltese, if you didn't know, and we of course make Maltese food, but I very much enjoy to cook and bake, and the concept of food writing and food narrative is something that's really interesting, especially in books. So I think that actually might become the next topic, is food in literature, because it's a really fascinating subject. Ali Lukes, Dr. Ali Lukes, will obviously does smell, and so it's kind of adjacent to her thesis. But food in books, like Proust mentions madeleines, Sylvia Plath mentions a bunch of food in her work. There's quite a few food mentions in the Count of Monte Cristo. Lolita has food mentioned in it, and I think food, when you write about food, when you're creating a story, it really brings a magic to the narrative. You know, if you just sort of say, "Oh, we were sat on the beach," sounds nice enough, but then we were sat on the beach eating fish and chips, and the vinegar was potent like perfume. It becomes something different. It brings this sort of groundedness, and I think this sort of, well, as I said, magic. It brings a magic to the story. Okay, and that's that. So this has been the Maple Moon podcast. I'm your host, Courtney Shenbury Gray. You can find me on X and Instagram at Courtney Writes. If you're listening on Spotify, follow the link to my Substack, themaplemoon.substack.com. If there's any suggestions, criticism you have, of course, put that in the comments or find me online. Um, I hope this has been of value to you. I hope you're well. If you're not well, I hope this provides maybe some sort of comfort. Yeah, so signing off. Goodbye.